A lot to get into. We're going to start, obviously, with the first release of the government's secret UFO UAP files. Now, full disclosure, there's no smoking gun in this first installment proving aliens have visited Earth. There's no, images of little green men. Maybe they're gray now. I don't know. Anything like that. But what the government just released is obviously going to get people talking. The Pentagon's document dump includes more than 160 documents, videos, images, FBI files, military reports. These span decades. Some of the most talked about material, a series of newly released videos showing these strange objects moving through the skies of multiple countries, including the United States. You got one video, shows what officials describe as a football-shaped object tracked near Japan in 2024. There's another that appears to show a glowing object making abrupt movements over the Middle East. There are also these infrared images of so-called metallic orbs and strange red lights hovering in the sky. Oh, and then there are the Apollo files. Yeah, so for the first time, the government releasing these high-resolution images and transcripts from Apollo 12 and Apollo 17 showing what NASA called unidentified phenomena above the lunar surface. One image shows these three lights in a triangular formation above the moon. There's another that shows these bright objects off in the distance during the Apollo 12 mission. What this is, that's anybody's guess. And in the audio transcripts, Apollo 17 astronauts, they describe seeing, quote, very bright particles or fragments that are drifting outside their window during these maneuvers. Now, there's another side of the story, that a lot of this material is still incredibly fuzzy, grainy, inconclusive. Many of the videos look more like thermal blobs or distant light sources rather than flying saucers. The Pentagon says these cases are labeled unresolved, mostly because there isn't enough data to reach a solidified conclusion. So what does it mean? What does this reveal tell us? Is today's release the big UFO bombshell that people were hoping for, or is this a major preview? Are we being conditioned, prepared for what's about to come? Well, I'll tell you what. We have assembled a dream team panel on this Friday night to break it all down. Terry Hart is a retired U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel and former NASA astronaut. He was part of the crew that performed the first ever in-orbit satellite repair. Ben Hansen, former FBI agent, host of the very popular Discovery Plus show, UFO Witness. Jordan Flowers, investor, entrepreneur, the executive director of the Disclosure Foundation, which helps push for transparency and the sharing of classified information. Great to have you all here. Ben, I'll start with you. Okay, first installment. How would you rate it? Do you think that this is going to be the most compelling evidence, or, like I said, are we being prepared for something bigger?
I think that it definitely is. It depends on who you are, right? I was pleasantly surprised. If I was rating it from a scale 1 to 10, I'd give it probably an 8. It's about what I expected. I don't think that there was ever to be a smoking gun in this first release. And if I were doing it, you wouldn't give your most compelling cases first. So I think we need to hold on, but there's a lot of good stuff in there that we can get into.
Jordan, why not just release everything? I spoke to Avi Loeb earlier today, and he made the point, look, there's a way that this has to be declassified, it has to be structured, but it's also very interesting when you think about what was released, and a lot of this was these reports of metallic orbs near military installations around the world. So the two parts about it is, why not just release everything? And two, do you have a sense of what we're seeing?
Sure, and thank you again for having me. Yeah, I think that this is a process. Would you rather have everything all at once in a year from now, or would you rather have a package now and then a few things along the way? So I think it's good that we have some visibility here, but there's also whistleblowers that have come forward, like David Grush, who have said, the president actually isn't getting access to everything that he should be getting access to. There are files that haven't been turned over, for example, I believe from the CIA, from the Department of Energy. So I would expect to see more drops, and I think that's consistent from what our partners in Congress are representing as well.
And Jordan, just to follow up, do you think that these are symbolic of advanced military technology, or you say there's aspects of it, characteristics, I'm not so sure?
I think what's newsworthy here is that there's clearly a line from the government that we do not know what these things are, and we do not have our airspace significantly secured. There have been incursions over Langley, there have been incursions over Barksdale Air Force Base. We really need to get on top of what these things are, whether they are foreign adversaries, whether it's something more interesting than that. We really need to know. Whatever the truth is here is sensational, and we need to get to the bottom of it.
Terry, I'm so happy to have you. Obviously, A, because you have such a stellar career. You're awesome. But two, the Apollo transcripts? I mean, I wasn't predicting that. What did you take about that when they're talking about strange phenomena? You know what I'm going to ask you. Did you see anything like that?
Good to be with you tonight, Jesse. I did not myself see anything.
By the way, would you tell me if you could? Would you tell me if you did?
Of course. The astronauts are public servants, and I spent 6 years at NASA, and no one ever told me not to report something that I would see in space. So, yeah, it's a very much open environment. Now, the military, that's another issue. We have all sources and methods that have to be protected, so the slower release of that material is probably due to those kinds of considerations. But, you know, at NASA, it's very much an open society.
Well, Terry, just sticking with you for a second, a lot of these videos are fuzzy. They could be anything, unresolved. As you're looking at this, as you're thinking about your experience, do you have an idea?
Well, we see so-called digital artifacts quite often. I often think in terms of the old Western movies. You'd see the stagecoach rolling down the road, and all of a sudden the wheels would start to turn backwards. You know, we say, well, those wheels can't be turning backwards. You know, that's an artifact of the fact the camera's going at 24 frames per second and it appears to freeze the wheel temporarily. Those kinds of things in a more sophisticated way with today's digital technology occur pretty often, and are sometimes the explanation to some of these effects that we're seeing.
Ben, is there one video, one image, one screenshot that you think stands out from the rest that maybe isn't getting the kind of attention that it should be? You tell me.
Well, I'd probably respond to that with another question. A lot of people, why are we just looking at the images? It's you know, like this eye candy to see and trying to analyze. But honestly, if you spend some time and people look at the documents that have been released, in fact, there was one, I believe, I'm trying to source to see if it's correct, early this morning, it was removed. And apparently has, you know, alleged involvement in the USS Eisenhower in '85, picking up some type of recovered something. And so are they going to release that later? You know, the documents, but I guess going back to the images too, I really like some of these that are occurring around the oil rigs, where we have good reference points. That's really important in the video. And then you see the object moving around very erratically. So you only have a couple things that could explain that prosaically.
But Ben, just following up on that, the information that was redacted or taken back, how do you know that? And has we've gotten a response from the government about why that might be?
Well, apparently there were some people up much earlier than me this morning. And when this was first posted, they were able to access the link the government posted, and those files, the links no longer are there. I've heard one or two of these are defunct links, but this image is out there. It's the USS Eisenhower from 1985, and I believe it's a Vice Admiral Carter who signed this memo. You know, and so I can't verify that. I you know, didn't find that myself online, but it's things like this that I think would be very interesting in the next tranches.
Jordan, you know, when we look at this, we're going into it biased in a way. We're going into this with our own perceptions of what extraterrestrial aircraft may look like, what extraterrestrials may look like. Because I have to mention, out of all times for Disclosure Day, the Steven Spielberg movie to come out, which is, I'm sure, going to get a lot of attention, I do wonder, is that going to affect this? Is that going to affect our perception of that? Is that going to affect our interest in all of that? Because again, I do think that pop culture does have an effect on us.
I think it will have an effect. I think there will be people that are interested in this subject that will try to answer questions that they ask in that movie. And with the Disclosure Foundation, the organization that I'm a part of, we're actually having an event in DC in June, sponsored by senior leaders in Congress like Senator Mike Rounds, to try and address in an intellectual way some of the questions that are going to be raised in that movie. So that's our disclosure forum we're having, and we really think that there's going to be elevated interest by the public and in Congress.
Terry, why do you think we're seeing this now? And by the way, there's been commentary before this initial release. where you heard people say you're going to be disappointed by it, right? But at the same time, you do wonder if you're dealing with materials that are decades old, why are we seeing this now? Do you think there's a cover-up going on?
No, I don't think so. We very much want to answer these kind of questions. And the Webb telescope, that we spent billions of dollars to put in space several years ago, has a mission of answering two questions. How did we get here? And are we alone? And we want to answer those questions. And if there are scientific efforts here to understand these, that's a good thing. I mean, we should be trying to understand everything that they can declassify and answer that question. So there's really no reason to have a cover-up. We want to know, the answer to those two questions.
I think this is a good thing. I really do. I think that this is a good thing that we're all interested in, that could have an effect on all of us in terms of, what our understanding of this world is, what our understanding of technology is, science. So I'm all in favor of transparency. We will see where it goes. This is part one. Terry Hart, Ben Hansen, Jordan Flowers, thank you all so much for coming on. Really.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.